powerful and crisp. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to dump you and Wendy into a breakout room so you guys can get to know each other and make some friends, as we'll just get into a flying start into impromptu networking. And our prompt today is, I find it particularly easy to make decisions when. I find it particularly easy to make decisions when.
All right.
And with that as our prompt, I will say, in the least creepy way imaginable, enjoy each other. Leave me alone, man.
Hey, Jeremy. Good afternoon.
Hey, Guido. How you doing, sir?
Good, good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Sounds like a party. Where you
Oh, yeah.
Are you in the office?
Maybe I can find a more quiet place. Indeed, I'm in the office, which is nice to be in. But if it's too noisy, then let me know, then I'll find a room.
No, it's all right.
I just joined this call. It was in my agenda. I said, hey, what's up with this call? Let's see what's happening here.
Yeah, check it out. See what is happening. We are in the midst of already started with impromptu networking. So, and that's just a sort of short series of one-on-one interactions.
Right.
And our prompt today is, I find it easy to make decisions when. I find it particularly easy to make decisions when. Dot, dot, dot.
Yeah. All right, interesting.
So what comes up for you?
Let's see. Well, the first thing that pops into my mind is that I'm not the best in making decisions. Actually, that's not my. That's also the reason why I would not like to be a product manager or product owner.
Oh, yeah?
Because you have to make way too many of them a day. And actually, I try to make as less decisions as possible in a day. Standardize a bit, and because I'm horrible at making choices. But I mean, making a decision is easy when there's no alternative, or when
Totally.
or when the pros and cons are really clear. That's the first thing that pops in my mind.
Yeah, especially when there's no alternative. Like building on that, for me, what jumps out is like when decisions make themselves. Right?
Indeed. Yeah.
And that can be because of sometimes a lack of a decision is also a decision.
Indeed.
Right? Then the situation just sort of decides itself. It's like,
Yeah.
well, okay, all right, well, that's the way.
That's a decision not to do anything.
Yeah, there's something about it about that sort of confluence that's just like, okay, all right. But that I find it very easy to roll with the punches.
Yeah, indeed.
And I find it particularly easy to make decisions when I have a sort of dog in the fight.
All right. Yeah.
Right. So like when I have an interest.
Indeed.
If I don't have an interest, then I think I could definitely fall into that category of like, whatever. Like when it's something I really care about, then it's typically like, oh, well, this is the way.
Yeah, because
because then I just have like this blinding degree of clarity that is probably irrational, but it's just easy enough to go with.
Indeed. Yeah. Is it even if there's something in it for you, right, to make the decision, there could still be something that you say, but looking at it on the other perspective, maybe it's not the best decision. Maybe I shouldn't do it. Maybe we should go in a different direction.
Yeah, sure. I used to get into this situation. So when I first moved into this house, like I was here for almost a year and a half before I could work up the nerve to hang like a single painting or like any piece of art, because there was just like this sense of like, while the walls are pristine, I want to sort of preserve the optionality that is being able to put something everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? And so I was sort of like hoarding this sense of possibility that was there.
Yeah.
But then it like, ironically, that possibility turned into like this straitjacket that didn't allow anything to manifest at the same time. Like there was this attachment to this open playing field, and at some point it just dawned on me, probably thanks to my person Sarah, that I can always make a different choice.
Yes, and that's also something that I see at work. So it doesn't have to be like a permanent decision or always have to be like this, but it could be a direction where we can go to now. And if it's not working in a month or two, or in a week, then let's change it.
Totally. So now that we're all catching the vibe, so to speak, we're going to rotate. And so I'm going to introduce Wendy. If you could ignore the prompt, we're going to do this one more time.
I can mute.
So Hito and Martin, I'm going to hustle you guys into a room together so that you can explore. I find it particularly easy to make decisions when. This would be a smaller time boundary, but now that you've got it through in the first time, should be all right.
Cool.
Let's see. Go off to number one. So Wendy, when do you find it particularly easy to make decisions? When?
I have a confession to make first. I've never yet used one prompt in any breakout yet.
That's why we call them an invitation.
Yeah. When do I find it easy to make decisions? When it's about food.
Oh yeah. Ooh. Really? That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Food and what?
Food and sleep.
Oh, well, that's easy. Like sleep, I'm sleep every day of the week. Like, put me on team take a nap permanently.
I am queen of that team. I have multiple blankets depending on what type of nap it is.
Yes, I don't even doubt that you're joking whatsoever.
I'm not.
No, I can dig it.
When do you find it easiest to make decisions if they're not about sleep?
I find it easiest to make decisions when actually I don't know. Right? Sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
I think when there's not even when the stakes are high. Sometimes it's just like blindingly clear. Let's go this way. And other times it's just like, well, we could do this, we could do that. And I just fall into that pit of like, indifference. So
I find it easy to make decisions for other people.
yes, there we go. If I don't have to deal with the consequences, totally.
Yeah, I have
That one.
complete clarity.
Yeah. If I'm not involved in the situation as well, right? Oh, and especially if I wasn't asked.
Oh yes, absolutely. That's the ideal.
Yeah. When I don't have to deal with the consequences, nobody asked, and yeah, that's it. Then I know exactly what should be done clearly.
I'm going to ask you an advisory question, and don't worry, I'm not going to go wah wah wah. Jeremy said this, and I hate it. I was chatting to Martin about agile, and I know that you have agile in your history, and I am thinking of doing an agile training. And would I go? I think I'm a Scrum Master by nature.
Uh-huh.
It just feels like it's one of the kind of basic things, because I've developed my work from theater and psychotherapy and playback. So I've been working with crazy, ways to engage people.
Yeah,
That's just our wheelhouse.
for sure.
And then morphing them into corporately digestible forms.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the disciplines involved in agile, and also it's getting recognized as a brand, and it's also it's always useful to have that extra little badge so that you feel safe to a corporate that thinks, should we hire this trainer?
Right. Yeah, to increase the surface area of things that are salient. I can dig that. So what's the question?
Where did you train, and where would you point me?
Oh, that's a good question. Where would I train? Where did I train? I trained with a group called WINFY.
Yes.
It was almost like an apprenticeship. So they gave me like a month worth of training. What's up, Frederic?
What about the LinkedIn badgy one?
The LinkedIn badgy one.
Yeah, you get this kind of, you do the thing and you get a certificate doofer.
Yeah. Well, then you can do like scrum.org. They're pretty well. I mean, that's like industry standard.
Okay.
For the dudes. Frederic, the question is, where would you go to for Agile's training?
Where would I go to what?
For like training in the realm of Agile.
Oh. Who for?
Yes. Oh. All right.
Yeah.
Do this one more time. Do this one more time. Wendy, we'll get to it, I promise.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let's rotate our groups around.
Hey, I'm going to connect with my PC. I just realized for some reason Meetup doesn't send the doesn't forward anymore. So I'll connect on my PC if it doesn't bother you, Michael.
Oh, what a drag. Then Martin, you might want to hang out with me then for a second.
Sure.
Once more, I find it easy to make, particularly easy to make decisions when ellipsis. And ready, go. Yes, I did walk the dog. Hey, there we go.
Recording in progress.
That was psychedelic. I find it particularly easy to make decisions when I really, really have to.
When your belly's full. Yeah.
When your belly's full, yeah, maybe.
I think, I read some articles about risk. You're more risk adverse if you're hungry. So maybe it's better after a meal. No, when I have hard decisions, I just accept that there is no wrong decision. There's only my current decision. I have to work with what I have right now, right? I won't know everything or the consequences. So when I accept that, then there's no wrong decisions, and I can easily take one, even if I, in a few weeks, understand that it was a wrong one. I say, that's fine. Martin in the past didn't know this, so it was all cool.
Right. I like the I can definitely plus one that sense of when I recognize that I can make a different choice, that no decision is necessarily permanent. That certainly helps.
Yeah, but you're not always in that position. Not all decisions are so favorable, right? Or so flexible.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're in a new situation. You just start from the top again, and you evaluate, and you take the decision, right?
Right. Go through the OODA loop one more time.
Mm-hmm.
Frederick, what about you? When do you find it particularly easy to make decisions?
When the people around me and I have strong enough a relationship that if shit happens, the relationship doesn't die.
So some sense, so like a strong degree of trust is present.
Yeah, trust, respect, being in the same boat, even if trust, for instance, if I was asked to do cooking, there would not be trust with people who know me, and that is normal. But the relationship would not be impaired if I decide to put spinach and pineapple on the same pizza with chocolate, because it's a wrong choice, but they know it's me. But when you make a choice, for instance, on a gig, and people don't really know you, and you operate out of I operate out of my heuristics, I may not even realize that I'm making a decision, and people around who have not been with the same background may freak out. Any resemblance with a current client would be completely intentional.
Yeah.
So for me, that's really the point. Is the decision I'm making okay for the people who are going to see it from the outside?
Yeah, and there's some sense of like the presence of like evaluation or judgment, and how it sort of completely changes the character of the context.
Yeah. And I could give you so many examples if we needed it. I'm not going to get into that, but of cases where you make a decision whom you feel is great for the client, but it might actually be seen as threatening for the team itself.
And then people,
go well.
And outsiders think you're an idiot or something, or they
Yeah,
put some,
either an idiot or reckless or
some bad characteristics.
disrespectful.
Yeah, that doesn't
But they
agree
may
with.
have a point.
Yeah.
From their point of view, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially from the sidelines. That's the easiest ones to make to go, oh well, obviously that was a misplay.
Yeah. So when the intent is when there's less room for misinterpretation of the intent, then it's easier to take the decision, right?
There is actually, you're raising a good point. Jeremy, you've probably seen me do this before, but when I was at KPMG, I was doing a lot of turnaround of projects. And so I ended up speaking exactly about facing exactly what you're speaking about. And I found that there were three things people could disagree on really fundamentally and strongly, but only one of them they would realize. The second one, they would realize if they listen to each other, which is rare. And the other one, they would really need to observe one another. So usually people disagree on what to do or how to do it. And that's we need to do iterative. No, we don't need to do iterative. We need to do experiments. No, we know the answer already, etc. The second one is their intentions. So people will disagree on intentions, but usually because we tend to simplify or not talk so much about the outcomes, or not even the outcomes, but the why are we trying to achieve what we are trying to achieve, or what for. People will not necessarily see, and they will interpret the intentions, or they will not necessarily interpret the assessment of the situation that justified. So the why and the what for. And I face this a lot. But the last one is beliefs. And actually it took me time to realize that the last one I said is actually a belief. So it's basically either a belief or whatever we think is true. And so these beliefs, they're really foundations. And the last client where I was, or I'm still there, but they assumed that talking to executive would make things dangerous. They assumed that saying, tell me what you want, was making a promise. Whereas I've had 10 years of experiencing that you can ask people what they want and then say, I'll do none of it. Not now, but thank you for telling me.
Right.
And so to iterate on what you said, I think these are the three things people may disagree. They may disagree on your intentions. They may disagree on what they assume is true.
The assessment, yeah.
That might be plenty of things. It might be, do you assume that people are actually worth enough, not treating like machines? Do you assume that in complexity, making small steps and checking often is worth? We consider it's true, other people not necessarily, and we need to agree that these are things that are worth checking. So yeah, so that's why I feel that this is the space where I feel decisions are not necessarily easy if you want it not to be the last decision you make as a group.
That's an interesting condition.
J'aime bien ça. C'est excellent.
All right, gang. Well, we're going to get into the Wise Crowds design call. So for those of you guys that haven't been here, what we're going to do is we're going to do this give and get help thing, making use of this structure, Wise Crowds. Important to keep in mind is that everybody's got a membership role that they can take up regardless of your familiarity with liberating structures or tools, consulting, life in general. There is good things that we can do to make sure that we have a super productive, awesome, good time. If you're new to this type of rodeo, then you can help us out. If you're familiar with no structures, you can help us out by challenging any assumptions that you see us pop up, those beliefs that we may not know that we have, point them out and bring them up for discussion. If you're a cautious optimist, if you know 5 or plus or minus 5 structures, help us out by asking for clarification. If we get caught up in jargon and start throwing around terms that are unfamiliar for you, and please help us, for the love of God, be less presumptive. If you're a cautious optimist, if you're familiar with plus or minus half of the Liberating Structures catalog, then please step up to the plate and explain things, even if you're not sure that you've got the perfect answer that's battle tested and polished to a T. And for any minimalist maestros in the house, let's make space for other folks and build with your experience on top of their input. And so in this doc, which I guess I should send a link to, I would also invite you to send a, put your email, your contact details in the document so that we can get everybody into the Web3 miracle. There it is. That's the copy button, which we can all do together by putting your email in the guest book up on the top of the doc. You'll see it up there. And what we're going to do is jump into Wise Crowds. For anybody that's not familiar with Wise Crowds, it's very similar to Troika Consulting. One of us is going to take on the role of the client, and then the client's going to sort of explain their help request. Then the others are going to take on the role of consultants. Consultants will ask a few clarifying questions. We'll try and suspend our advice for after clarification, when the client will turn off their webcam and microphone. And then us consultants will chop it up about the client situation. Then we'll invite the client back in after a few minutes to share their takeaways, having heard the consultation of the consultants. So important to take note that when the client mutes themselves and turns off the webcam, importantly, they do want to listen and take notes, any stuff like that. So that'll be our structure for the day. And then what we'll do is we'll try and come up with a list of liberating structures and how we might string them together to help the client address the brief. Is that pattern clear, or just any questions about Wise Crowds?
Can you keep the roles on the screen? I'm still trying to learn them.
Yeah.
The slide before?
The slide, oh, the development phases.
So I just want to get a bit granular and clarify.
Sure.
The bods, the users, do we delegate ourselves into one of these roles?
Yeah. Yeah, you're in the best position to self-evaluate where you're at on the sort of liberating structures learning journey.
So do we announce this as with our input, or just behave as?
Behave as. I mean, all of these are good things. So if at any point you want to take on a different membership role, awesome. This is basically just laying out that there is positive and supporting behavior that anybody can take on, regardless of where what they think their skill level is. So I just want to invite everybody to become an active participant in the call, rather than just sort of, oh, I don't think I know so much, so let me just hang back.
So you could be a rapturous optimist.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, or a despairing minimalist. Why not?
Okie dokes.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's and I usually consider like the liberating structures in use on the left-hand side. I usually think about that as the sort of maturity phase. If you think about the eco cycle, so the maturity phase is when that sort of conscious competence develops, when you can make use of a pattern. But maybe that's a little bit of a tangent. My question for us as a group today is, who's got a design brief for us to work on? I'm going to stop share since everybody's got the link to the doc in the chat.
So I think I submitted one.
Awesome. So I will have that, but
Yeah.
for Frederick and Wendy, if you want to give them the game, that
Okay.
would be rad.
So the deal is here. I'm just going to ask if this goes for. I'm the client role, right? I have an event I plan, and that's the brief. Yeah.
Yeah. You're
Okay.
you're planning an event. Tell us
Okay.
about it.
Yeah. So I work at a big company. We're divided into several teams, different companies in different teams. But my team, we have this event coming up that I really pushed for us to have, but it was accepted by everybody because we're going into the summer holiday, and we have quite diverse expertises and areas of responsibilities, and it's really not very top management managed. So we would like to know how vulnerable are we during the summer holidays with regard to maintaining our functions as a team, because we support all the other development teams here. We do environment management, and we do service desk jobs, and we do certificates for things, and we do tooling and stuff like that. But it's some people do some things and other people do other things, and we don't always know what each other is doing, right? So the idea for this event is to kind of map out what skills or activities are important in the team, and then somehow gauge our levels individually so we can plan for the summer holiday and become less vulnerable as a team, right? So maybe somebody have to skill up in an area or whatever, but we first have to agree what's really important. So that's the brief, I think. The questions there.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, we have, oh sorry, we have 2.5 hours to work with for this, and we're about 8 members. There's also a team leader, who's like a manager, and then there's a team owner who is kind of a stakeholder owner, funder of the team. Yeah, questions please.
When you speak about vulnerability, it seems obvious, but just to make sure,
Mm-hmm.
we're not speaking about individuals being stuck in a call and feeling, oh my God, I don't know that thing. Well, actually, let me ask you differently. What do you mean by vulnerable?
By what? By
Vulnerable.
the vulnerability?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I mean our capacity as a team to deliver what the other teams expect of us, right? So if all of us but 2 are on vacation, and another team expects some activity or some skill from our team, and we don't have that available, and we're vulnerable, that kind of sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna refine that even further.
Yeah.
Are you looking at your capacity as a team to deliver specifically over the vacation, or is it a more general timeline?
Yeah, so when I pitched this to the team manager, he said, oh yeah, that's a good idea before the vacation, right? And people agreed. So I think they have done that exercise before. But for me personally, and for the stakeholder owner of the team, I think we're still a little bit in the dark of what people are doing in this team. So for me, it's also a team cohesion. Can we be more effective? Can we help each other? What's really going on here? Does that answer? Yeah.
Yeah, it does. So what I'm hearing is that as well as there being a particular seasonal
need,
requirement, dynamic, I'm also getting a sense that there is a more general lack of clarity within the team. That's what I'm hearing you. Is that correct? Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, because I recently joined 3 months ago, and it was hard to make out what we were doing. And some people were doing test work over there, and some people had calls with externals there, and this guy was doing some release management and service desk over there. So it's kind of hard to know also how I fit in, where can I be efficient, and or how can I help, etc., right? So it's a fragmented team. It's not, doesn't seem like there's a single goal, but there might be. I don't know.
What is your sense of how this situation came to be?
Yeah, I think organizational effects of putting the testers that were facing the externals, there were only 2 people of those. We just put them into with the system maintenance team, and then we have a manager, and then we get another guy doing test automation, and we also have the service desk. We do that as well. Sometimes we clean the coffee machine, sometimes we do, I mean, so I think it's the bucket of odd tasks in this setup.
So it sounds like it's plug and play.
Yes, I don't know how long it's been like this, but they always been kind of a janitor role in this organization.
And do you have, and this is my last question,
Hmm?
do you have a sense or a vision or an ideal or something that you sense within this team could be more wonderful or be more dreadful?
No, but some kind of clarity would be nice. I mean, and I think the new stakeholder owner, he's in the same position as me, trying to grasp what's really important. Because I can do all kinds of stuff. I spend my day doing different kinds of things, but I have a hard time know if it's really valuable work.
Who determines whether the work you do is valuable?
How I tell? Good question. So I guess if it helps some of the other teams, if they come with a question or a problem and we solve it in our team, or if I help solve it, then I guess we have been of value in our role of supporting the other teams.
But it's sounding as if there's no clear acknowledgement from, I want to call it the hierarchy, just so I just will, because that's the word in my head, that if you all went away suddenly, would they miss you?
Yes, sure they would. Because we maintain all the test systems, right? So when they fall down, nobody would pick them up. We maintain the release operations. So when there was a release to the production systems, nobody would be in charge of that. The service desk wouldn't function. The test coordination wouldn't work. So there are important stuff here in the team, I'm sure.
It sounds like you know that. And my question is, do they know that?
Yeah, I think everybody know, but I'm not sure that the release guy, he knows about how important the test coordination is, right? And so those kind of insights would be good to share in the team, I think. Cool. Not that he has to help over there, but you never know, there might be an opportunity, there might be, I don't know. But yeah, and also there's a, what do you call it? Some of these guys don't like all this hippie stuff with sticky notes and stuff like that. So they're pretty traditional in their meeting structures here. Not that we won't use stickies in some events, just to say that it's a pretty traditional company. It's a governmental affair. So we won't get impro acting and in this event.
Improv prototyping, come on, this could be the exact opportunity we need. I think I have a relatively reasonable sense. So it sounds like in advance of, so it sounds like we've got ourselves a sort of platformy / orphans team. So the stuff that happens in between teams that has some, and the goal of this session that you're talking about is to help identify when there might be a vulnerability is the word you used.
Yeah.
The possibility when the team won't be able to deliver what's expected of it from other teams over the course of the summer holiday. 8 or 9 members on the team. And you said 2 to 3 hours. Is this going to be a remote session or
all physical session?
Okay.
But no post-its.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm thought about it. It's hard to do. I don't know. We'll probably just use post-its, and he'll have to play along. Oh, it's a single guy who uttered this. He's hard to read, so I don't know if he's serious about it. Oh, Martin, none of that post-it stuff, that hippie stuff. But he's hard to read, so I think we might be good.
Better to take your shoes off and sit in the dirt,
Yeah.
hold hands and sing a song. All right, so I think I got the basic nuts and bolts of the brief. If there's no other clarifying questions, Martin, I'll invite you to put yourself on mute and turn off your webcam and listen while Frederic, Wendy, and I chop it up about your situation, with the goal of what structures pop to mind to help address this design brief, and how might we string them together.
Super cool. I'll be listening then. I'll turn off the camera and I'll plug in my PC to some power.
You do
cool.
that.
Yeah. All right.
My question would be to you guys, what's the most important dynamic to address and in what order? So there's several threads going on.
That's a good question.
Because it sounds like there's some experts in silos who might not see why they need to be in closer communication with another expert's functionality. They do their bit, they plug in the kettle, that's their job. It's nothing to do with them. That the hamburger chef flips the hamburger, is that one of the dynamics that can be woven in later, or what's the first one to it seems that as well as the lack of clarity, there's a kind of a stuckness, a kind of a stubbornness.
Yep, I could feel that as well. I'm not sure. I don't know about that question, but so there's definitely, I have some sense of like I don't know, man. This just feels like the status quo, right? We just, this is the way things are. This is the way we do things. It works well enough. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's not particularly awesome. Maybe it's a little squishy and a little vague, but hey, why rock the boat?
Yeah.
So I feel like that question of why rock the boat is going to have to be like super, super explicit and clear in order to address any of the other stuff that you might want to start poking your finger at.
Yeah.
So I guess I would really start with the most creating of like a very concrete artifact of like, hey, what are the areas of coverage that we have that teams expect of us? Is there actual vulnerability in that? And on the basis of that, that might reveal that'll probably reveal that, oh yeah, there is some possible vulnerability. It turns out that for the whole month of August, like we're going to be missing a crucial skill here, a crucial skill there. And then we might be able to say on the basis of that, okay, how are we going to shake things up? Because that's not going to work. So that might be my game plan looking at it. In terms of like structures that pop up, like one of the things that jumps out is the agreement, or no, not even that, the STAR, Generative Relationships. It's not quite exactly on brief, But generative relationships is like a micro team health check.
Mm.
So if you've ever done like a big team health check, it has lots of categories, you know, everybody sort of scores theirs, and then, you know, you compare notes, and on the basis of that artifact, you've got yourself a reason to talk about where you guys see difference or where you guys see challenge, yada, yada, yada.
How
Generative.
about what I need from you?
Yeah, if you can, I think that's definitely an interesting one, thinking about these different silos, what they might need from each other in order to avoid that service interruption. That could work. But just to unpack generative relationships, so that one asks us about our sort of separateness or diversity. Our T is, I believe T is trust. A is action. So to what extent do we act together? And R is reason. So like to what extent is our goal, are our goals clear? So just on those sort of 4 dimensions on a scale of 1 to 5, you know, do we have enough diversity to do the job? Do we have enough like communication and trust to do the job? Are we able to act together to effectively to do the job? And are we and is our goal or purpose clear enough to do the job? So that might be another way that you can generate a physical artifact that can then open up these this can of worms that you might think you might have some sense is beneath the surface. Anybody else?
I'm still Martin explained that you arrived 3 months ago and the team has been there for a while. I would like to know how much in his perception is projection or anxiety of what's to come. So I would be very interested in understanding what they did last summer, because summer vacation have this thing, right? They happen every summer. So did they have a problem? Did they solve it? Does the system have some inherent ability to absorb things? Because, for instance, they don't. So far, they haven't released anything during summer or anything like that. And how different would that be this summer? I'd like to get this sense from the team and from the people who own the work for the summer.
Would you lead with that, Frederic? Would you lead with that, do you think?
No, I would want to know this before the event, because otherwise it could be a train wreck.
Ah, d'accord.
Otherwise, I agree with the star, with the what I need from you. I was considering. Initially, I was considering appreciative interviews, but I thought it would be way more elongated and not to the point enough. And I agree with you, Jeremy, that I mean, it needs to be to the point because it's about avoiding things to break. It's not about, are we going to improve things for the long run? Given everything you know about liberating structure, Jeremy, why I was considering the critical uncertainties, but the thing is, it is long, right? It's a good hour and a half, so it would kill the event. Is it why you removed that, or is it because it has another benefit than the one I imagined?
So critical uncertainties, I think, could be could really satisfy the brief. It works in terms of more like scenario planning, right? So critical uncertainties, we come up with the most critical factor and the most uncertain factor in our work together, and then, you know, on the basis of those two, we basically create a 2x2 matrix. So what is critical on the x-axis, what's uncertain on the y-axis, right? Lots of uncertainty, little uncertainty, lots of criticality, little criticality, and then we have created 4 different scenarios based on the combination of, do we have a lot of what's critical and very little of what's uncertain, right? And within those, each 4 of those domains or those scenarios, we come up with some description about how would we notice. Like if we fast forward to middle of the summer, what are we going to see, hear, and notice that lets us know we're in one of those scenarios versus another one of those scenarios? And then after we've done that sort of evaluation of what we would notice, we would come up with some shorthand, some heuristic, some name that we would call that scenario, just so that we don't have to, we can condense the information. Once we have a name, like usually a nice catchy name, song title, movie, some form of reference to pop culture that's laden with a lot of meaning, then we would ask, okay, so we're in that scenario, what do we do? If we find ourselves here, how do we manage the fact that we have found ourselves with this reality? So this is less of a like intervention-y strategy, like how do we fix it, but more how do we not die and the company doesn't blow up if it turns out that we have the most critical and we're just completely missing what's most critical to do the job. We're filled with the most uncertainty about what to do the job. What are we going to do? What's going to be our first step to just deal with that reality? And so once you've sort of done that with all 4 scenarios, you can then take a look at what are strategies that you see popping up in lots of different scenarios. Those are what we call resilient strategies. And then we also have like specific narrow strategies that are only in that one scenario, but if you are in that scenario, that'll be the one that'll save your life. So obviously then you think about, okay, how do we start doing resilient strategies everywhere all the time? And how do we sort of create an OODA loop for us to evaluate if we're in one of those scenarios so that we might be able to grab that narrow specific hedging strategy is what they're called, and pull it off of the bookshelf and put it to work for us. So generally speaking, right, that's probably a pretty good blueprint to think about how that session might work, because almost guaranteed you're going to be in one of these sort of 4 scenarios. The sort of hard work, not necessarily hard, but finding those 2 factors, finding the thing that's very critical about the work that they do, and finding the thing that's very variable and very uncertain. That is sort of what makes the scenarios like actually have teeth and determine whether or not the exercise is actually valuable. If I just pick 2 things off the shelf, like, all right, I now have 4 scenarios, but do those things matter? So critical uncertainties for sure could work, I think. And what's nice about it actually as a suggestion is that also gets you out of I find like skill matrix is basically what we're sort of landing on. I find those extraordinarily boring sessions. Like I just hate them to death, because like we end up with a laundry list of like 10 miles long of different things that, these are the skills in the team. And then we're just like routinely like, oh, I'm a 1 on this, I'm a 4 on this. Well, what's the difference between a 1 and a 4? They're just really boring exercises.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I didn't understand it to that level, so thank you very much for going into that detail. I would see even more value into doing this now, although it seems risky because you need to find these 4 scenarios. But the other thing is, it's not about the skills which we couldn't gain in 4 weeks, right? I mean, we're end of May, beginning of June. They will have 3 weeks if they do the workshop, let's say next week, to get ready. So of course they're not going to acquire the skills they don't have. So it's more around, indeed, as you said, how do they make sure the boat doesn't sink? And well, here's a plunger, put it there. Or here's the number of a person. There are two occasions you can call me. It's if we have this and that. And the thing is, I feel it creates a dynamic of, it emphasizes what's important. It emphasizes how they build up as a team or aggregate as a team. So, but I hadn't understood it was doing that at the beginning. So, yeah.
Cool.
The one thing I would feel is, because I'm still uncertain that Martin is 100% right on, he is 100% right on his perception of his experience, but is it a shared experience? The benefit of this is that no matter what the experience of others is, it's actually not dogmatic. There are still things that are going to come, and how do we dodge them as a team? Something like that.
Totally. And coming back to this idea of like classic skills matrix as well, the idea that is min specs also seems like very, very salient to bring up. Like if you're going to go that route and go in towards like skills matrix, then like min specs. So number one, what is the purpose or goal of this team, right? What is the, if it's the mission statement, I don't care however you want to describe it, but like, what is it in God's name we're doing here? What is our job or our unique charter? Our what have we been delegated to do, if you want to think about it in like S3 type language. And then from the basis of that, like what are the things that are absolutely required in order for us to deliver that specific outcome? And only those things would I want to put on that list of like of required skills. So that seems pretty sage as well. Yeah, so there's some interesting stuff in there. We can think about scenario planning, we can think about generative relationships to maybe do some a mini health check and create some form of desire to mix things up. Min specs with maybe some 9 whys, something along those lines to clarify the purpose of the group. That feels a little bit, it's so freaking funny, because when I think about the goal of this session, which is, are we going to go through any critical service outages? Like I'm sort of blown away at like that goal somehow, like the purpose of the team feels like a big distraction. It's like, oh, well, that's not the goal of this session, but on the one hand, like who cares? Like how can that not be essential to answering this question? Will we undergo a critical service outage? I notice some sense of like this grumpiness, this grumpy energy that Martin mentioned is sort of present, and like, oh, here we are, purpose, rah, 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 rah. That's not, so that's sort of funny that that's showing up.
So should we bring Martin back, or?
You look like you're physically going to do that, Frederic.
He's like gonna go grab
through
him.
his house looking for Martin.
Yeah, Martin, we've given you a lot of food for thought. So why don't you come back in and see what feels particularly relevant and salient for you after hearing that, and maybe we can help continue to refine that.
And I do want to ask you, Jeremy, also at the end, just a general question.
Cool.
When we've
Okay.
given Martin our.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm back. You hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Did you want to say anything, Wendy, or no? No. I listened. So I originally thought, skill matrix. Let's see what's up there. Let's get them ranked, prioritized, and stuff. But maybe there are better ways and more interesting ways to do this. Even if they think it's in preparation for the summer holiday, maybe there's something deeper there. And I like the practicality of what you name the critical uncertainties,
Mhm.
because I think that would go well with the team, that they are practical people, right? We get things done, we handle the tickets, we do this, we do the deployments. So maybe that's in the spirit of this kind of team, identifying scenarios and making actions or plans for what to do.
Coming up with a game plan.
Yeah.
Let me. I've got a. Of course, I've got a.
Yeah, and then
explainer.
yeah, but also the question here of what they did last year, and because summer holiday comes every year. I was not there, but I'm guessing, without knowing too much, that it was no big deal last year. I don't think summer holidays are. I mean, there are not much development going on. There's certainly no releases in the summer holiday, so I don't think it's a worry that we go around with for the summer holiday. I think it's just due diligence from the managers, and from that we need to make sure that we are on top of what we're supposed to do. The generative relationships, what's that about?
Star generative relationships.
Mm.
Let me put a visual in here. On the doc. Yeah, so generative relationships, like I said, is this sort of mini health check. So in the dimension of sort of separateness, or what you might typically describe as diversity, like on a scale of 1 to 5, do we have like sufficient diversity again to do the job that we need, to do all the jobs we need as a team? T is tuning, is the way they describe that. So, to what extent, how well do we tune into each other? Do we communicate? And in order to do the work that we need to do, again, on a scale of 1 to 5. A being action. So to what extent, how well do we act together to accomplish our work as a team? And reason, how important is it that we work together? To what extent do we work together, or is our purpose clear?
Yeah.
So this
but
is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, but to what extent should I try to identify a goal for the team if there is no common goal? I mean, if we are fractured in different smaller groups, then it might not make sense, or there might be nothing there, or it might be valuable just to see, for people to see that we are smaller groups. So to what degree should I go with that theme, or should I just go straight to handling the summer vacation?
What feels important to you and why? Just right here, right now, or even ask yourself 9 questions before you do it. Why is this important to you? What about it is so important to you? It kind of connects to Frederick's sense of whose issue is it?
Yeah. I might be putting more into this than what's really needed, or I might have some need for doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is valid too. I think that's you're a member of the team too.
Yeah.
But I think it's good to be aware of, I've got an extra bag.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to check it or carry it on, but it's just an awareness of it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can make a choice about whether you really need that extra pair of sneakers.
Yeah.
One thing that is coming to me as you were speaking, Wendy and Martin, is Dave Snowden speak very often about data before framework. So not trying to put a name to things before we've seen the things live. And I wonder whether an exercise that wouldn't force onto your teammates something that would be sense making for you, but would not be necessary for them. There's whichever way you find, through STAR and generative relationships, or through critical uncertainty, if you see what is coming, I would be interested, if I were to join a team, or I was joining a team and we were doing something, and we are different, so what is a pillar for me might not be a pillar for you, but I would be interested in seeing what matters to them. And then I would let it mature, especially in a quiet time like summer, to then see if I see it differently. And then I would have material. I mean, I would have matter to bring, rather than trying to get the meaning immediately.
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah.
But in the contrary, maybe you've actually already done the data, and now it's time to, you will have the context to know if it's actually timely to do this. It might be timely because they're relaxed, because it's about, they're all about to go. You went through some exercises together and you have plenty of data to look at. There are plenty of contexts where it could be a very good idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lots of food for thought here. Yeah, please.
If it turns out that you're right, that you're in, so let me just say, let's just assume that you're right. This team doesn't have a very clear purpose. You basically are just making a team out of what is effectively, just the orphans in between other teams, and you just have a collection of different agents that have their own segregated domains. So in that scenario, I think an exercise like what I need from you would be pretty interesting, to just make very explicit that, oh, if we do have specialist A over here and specialist B, is there actually, do we need each other to do our work? Maybe we do, and that's good to make clear that this is what I could use your help on, but maybe we don't, and that's also just as great to know. Oh yeah. So that means everything that you're doing, I can just fucking drop out of my calendar, and you can go do it while I go do my thing over here, because there's very little surface area.
And I think that's what the old timers in the team, they have done, right? But it's not explicit, so it's confusing for me and for the new stakeholder owner also, I think.
Yeah, if that's it. So if it turns out that you're right, that could be a really valuable exercise to make those things very black and white and go, okay, so it turns out we do have, 5 functional silos, just to exaggerate here in the team. And maybe 2 or 3 of those overlap, but maybe these guys are, now I get completely why you just want to be left alone in your corner, because it actually turns out that your work has very little to do with the rest of the work. And maybe you're much more focused on serving the clients than in that specific way. I wouldn't know.
And I read that article about what kind of teams. I mean, how common are the goals for each worker in the team, and how much do they depend on each other? And it's kind of the same direction. But I wonder if this is interesting for the team to know.
How would you go about knowing what really matters to them before the event?
If you can't use Post-its.
No, but I'm not the scrum master of the team, and I'm not the manager. I'm just a part of the test team, but the test stuff is really being handled. So I do automated test work and stuff like that. I don't have it's not in my official role to go around massaging the team in this way.
I mean, it could be as simple as, like, I don't know if it necessarily needs to be massaging, but just finding out what they think a good use of their time would be. Like, so we've sort of laid out, if you think about it, 2 or 3 different possibilities for you. So we have a possibility around scenario planning and critical uncertainties. Right. So we have a possibility around like functional silos and skill matrix, what I need from you. We have a possibility around sort of this it was a lesser explicit thread, but we have a sort of thread around storytelling that is, how did you do it? How did we manage this situation last time? Past experience qualifying is another needlessly long term to throw at it. So if you think about those three different sort of goals, what would be more meaningful? And we also had some additional thread around purpose as a possible opportunity space to just throw a hey, which of these things stack them up like backlog items in order of priority. What do you think would be a good use of your time together?
Yeah, totally aligned with Jeremy here. To me, this is not something that is a prerogative or a duty of a Scrum Master. If you're a tester and you're going to talk to dev and there are hundreds of things that are wrong, you're probably going to ask them, okay, what are the things you want feedback on? Because it could be long.
Of course, yeah.
And if you are a consultant and you're going to talk to a client, what's in your goal for the year?
You need
to understand what's really important for them.
Yeah.
No matter what your position, it's a sign of respect anyway.
So we need to understand each other, what's important for each person, and it might converge and it might not. But the information is valuable for working together, right? Because you know how people react, and
And it might even, I mean, I don't know, maybe Jeremy would I don't think Jeremy could lose his calm, but could be disappointed by that mildly. But if somebody really has zero interest in it, and you sense that the rest of the team doesn't see that they would have a contribution on a particular topic anyway, if one person wasn't there, I know it's an invitation as well, right? You are going on vacation, you're just arrived. Do you want to impose 2 hours of boredom to anyone? There's a social aspect also to this, right?
Yeah.
One of the outcomes is you're closer to the team as well. Somehow, I would guess.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'll sleep on these and I'll look into each of these three directions I can take it. And I'll be creative.
Go for it.
Yeah.
And I think coming back to this, so you mentioned something that's like you don't have an explicit role. This isn't in your function, right? But in the world in which we are operating, which is you're presumably under some form of self-organizing team, right? Also, if especially being new to the context, right, and leveraging these guys' understanding and brains to help make sure that you have a strong sense of sort of what the vibe of the team is and what the roles are and how you can participate is also it is a sort of worthy goal. I know that I don't necessarily like to. No, that's not true. I was about to say I don't like to take up space, but that's a total lie. But I let me describe it another way. I don't like to. I might downplay attending to my own needs, but that is valid in the context of like, hey, we're all in a boat together.
Yeah. So, it can grow from there as well, right? And people might find it valuable.
Totally. And if it helps you take up your membership role in the team, then fucking rad. But so do your thing, man. Think about it and drop in. Let us know how it goes.
Yeah.
And Wendy, you said you had a general question. Unless anybody's got a very specific another scenario we want to work with for wise crowds, I got energy for a general question.
Okay. And I just wanted to say one last thing to Martin, picking up on Frederick's thread, is that in a social aspect, people love being asked to give their expertise. And you, as a new guy, you know, both as a position of respect, it could just be a session where you ask for their expertise, and this other objective might, could be, you know, these other objectives could be addressed later. But this might just be the occasion of going, you know, I've only been here 3 months. We're heading off on vacation. You know, as Frederick said, how was it last year? As Jeremy said, you know, does the guy who plugs in the kettle need to talk to the guy who looks at the plumbing? You know, just go, I'd really be grateful for your input, and maybe, you know, just do some data gleaning and make it short and sweet is also another possibility, which establishes you as a guy with, you know, you get good points for another time.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's my general question. One session in particular stood out for me when Sophia brought her design quandary to the table. Pretty sure she was in Canada. And this was a first gig with this client or within this company. And again, like with Martin and other people, we worked on that as a group, and then she took it away. I would love, is there any bandwidth for, you know, 1 or 2 people to come back since doing these sessions and go, okay, so I tried this, and, you know, even like you, Martin, go, okay, threw it all out the window. I just got a bunch of beers for everybody, and, you know, whatever. I'd be really fascinated to know.
Yeah. The story, the end of the story, or the
what worked and what didn't in any of these sessions. Jeremy.
Totally. I would definitely be very curious to hear the tail of the tape to find out to what extent is this do we need to be doing this? Right? You know, if it turns out that this is an exercise in, you know, making ourselves feel important, but, you know, we're not.
I love that. I'm all for that.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. I mean, that counts as well. But yeah, no, definitely. So I've got I've got contact details for everybody. I can definitely send out a set of messages and ask folks, hey, you know, we'd like to do a particular session around closing the learning loop, or something along those lines, and make that happen. I learn
something every week. I mean, just
awesome.
Yeah. If you can't experience everything yourself, right? So it's when you exchange the experiences that you kind of gain insight. I'd love to tell the story after the 21st when this event is.
Cool. Well, I'll throw some invites out there and let's see what we can make happen. That feels like, since that is though, so maybe we can use this in 10 minutes. What structures might we think to make use of in order to organize that session, since that's outside of what we've been doing with this wise crowds thing? That doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. What might be a couple interesting patterns that we could lean on to make sure that call doesn't turn into a presentation?
Well, the first thing that came to me is probably, I mean, there are 2 things that come, but in a tiny way. Do you know how Daniel Metzik evolves a little bit the fishbowl? He basically puts a couple of people at the front who are in a specific asymmetrical position from the group, and I was wondering whether that would actually fit.
because then it could be a transition to other people who were in maybe the same situation, or they feel it was the same situation, and it could allow us to discuss nuances of context and intention. Just a thought.
Yeah, that feels good. I think definitely putting a couple people in the sort of center of, so telling their story about a scenario to each other and sort of trading field notes, that feels really helpful. That could make it much more alive than and less formal as well than put together a slide deck and tell us what you did.
Oh God, no.
But would they have they had experienced the same thing, or can it be different? So
Yeah.
usually you would have some people experience the same thing and they could have a discussion around it and people would listen, right?
Well, in one sense, that's a fair point, because what is each facilitator looking to do? And that's enable change or clarify. So if prior to the sessions, facilitators could give a sense of, in this session, my intention was to, break down a power structure or get, some really undercurrents. And then, do you see what I mean, Frederick, about that?
Yeah, absolutely. When I hear both of you, something is coming, but it might be risky, and this is not my place. This is your place, Jeremy. So please let me know what you think, and Martin as well. Thinking about what you said, Martin, that that you would be interested in sharing. How could it be if, when we are reviewing this and replaying it next time, Martin, you were inviting somebody who actually attended, and we were sharing the experience, and that would actually allow someone who has not been really attuned to these kinds of things, but who has really lived it, to share their experience and to show that you actually cared enough to think about how we would do this well, and maybe, I mean, in the worst case scenario, I haven't thought about the worst case scenario, but I don't feel anybody would really feel offended about people thinking about how we would have a good meeting. And that could be interesting, because it would really give us the experience we ultimately seek to have, which is to try to see if the people who attend have a good experience. Now, it's extremely vulnerable, but that would be magnificent.
I had the same thought briefly just now. Yeah, but it would be a fun experiment to see if somebody were willing from the team here to just come and chat for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be a long thing, but and it might seem very mundane for them to have a meeting and then what's all that? But for us, it's interesting to see that perspective, right?
Yeah, what I like about the suggestion as well is that it not only does it sort of close the feedback loop of what it was like for the people that were in the session, which is just super valuable all by its lonesome. I mean, that is the user experience in the user experience fishbowl. But also, something that you alluded to was that it opens up the design space that we are in it to someone who may not have any idea that space is even existed. Like, wait a minute, hold on. So you're telling me you thought about this meeting before the meeting? That's a thing that you can do?
You spend time on that? Yes.
Exactly. So from that perspective as well, that sort of like that I have this sense of like pulling back the curtain in the Wizard of Oz, right? It's like, oh shit, like there's gears and levers and there's buttons to be pulled here, which is, I think, for me at least, that's kind of the ultimate goal. That's why I like liberating structures in the first place, is because I think it makes that design space of, accessible to folks in a way in which doesn't require a whole shit ton of experience to gain access to. So for sure, I like it. I got energy for that proposal, so I'd be happy to send out a few mails and see who we can get to close the loop with us. That sounds rad.
Yeah, let me know.
Well, we'll expect you to bring the whole team at the end of the month, Martin.
Especially the guy that doesn't want. Especially
Yeah,
the post-it man.
let's finish with something reasonable.
The post-it man has to be your star client.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and then the long term, we want to see beginning of September your KPIs for the summer.
Yeah.
Probably nothing's
Sorry,
gonna
I had
happen.
to blow it.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
New reporting lines are being created as we speak. Awesome. Well, guys, that's the time that we've basically got for today. Thanks for hanging out in this May 30th edition of the Wise Crowds Design Call. Next week is going to be the Think Slow Dojo in this time slot. So feel free to drop in. It's a very different vibe, very different thing, but I'll be hosting a call. And then we'll have the next design call will be the first Monday after that. So 2 weeks from today, whatever date that is. It's on the meetup page. Thanks for hanging out, and
Thank
see you
you
guys around.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good end of week.
Bye.
Safe travels.
Oh God.